We're always in debt. We never had enough to eat. I could never keep a job. I hated working in for other people. I hated working in factories. Believe me or not, when I left school, I wanted to be a plumber.
We are already pioneers. We are already destined to go to places where it's difficult and hard to survive, but where we actually have the means and the technology to do so.
The moon is the proving ground. Mars is the horizon goal. This budget fully funds Mars 2020.
We imagine a future where humans could go to Mars.
We are working on the human lived experience of space.
Yes, we never had enough to eat. I could never keep a job. I hated working in for other people. I hated working in factories.
The frontier is an incredibly powerful idea in the American imagination.
Believe me or not, when I left school, I wanted to be a plumber. And suddenly, we hear about, if you're going to San Francisco, be sure to wear a flower in your hair. Now we're thinking, what the fuck is San Francisco? Where is this? What's all this flower shit? I've got no shoes on my feet. I'm starving. I don't want to work.
The new frontier of science and space.
When we talk about space exploration, we should not bring these harmful narratives from Earth's past.
And we just thought, well, it's not real, it's not for me. I mean, fuck, it's all right if you're living in the sun-shining San Francisco, but San Francisco was like somebody coming to me and saying, hey, Ozzy, do you fancy a trip to Mars?
Mars has a very particular planetary imagination. It's our closest planet. We've taken the most images, we've sent the most probes, and we have very rich imaginations, both science fiction as well as scientific, about Mars's past, present, and future. So Mars has become imagined as a destination.
Now we're thinking, what the fuck?
Space colonization. Beneficial occupancy of possibly the last and highest frontier, the space beyond Earth.
Where is this? What's all this flower shit? I've got no shoes on my feet. I'm starving. I don't want to work.
This is Lisa Masseri, a space anthropologist at Yale.
So there's all these different analog sites that offer a chance to imagine.
We were all fucking bums, virtually,
Imagine what existence on another planet might be like.
And we just thought, well, it's not real, it's not for me. I mean, fuck, it's all right if you're living in the sun-shining San Francisco.
So with this group of NASA scientists, we lived in the Mars Desert Research Station. My main takeaway was it was deeply uncomfortable. Deeply uncomfortable. Deeply uncomfortable. Pretending to live on Mars, even for only 2 weeks, is like the worst of camping. Pretending to live on Mars is like the worst. So Mars has become imagined as a destination.
What we would like people to realize is that living on Mars could be like living in an extraterrestrial Arctic oasis.
Architect Bjarke Ingels has been hired by the Dubai Future Foundation to create the Mars Science City, a prototype for a permanent human habitat on Mars in 2117.
Things that would be unnecessarily expensive or complicated or irrational on Earth would actually make perfect sense on Mars. So if you're building on Mars, you have a very, very thin atmosphere. So you have to create a pressurized environment. The buildings are going to be 3D printed with the local sand, because straight lines are cheaper to work with than curves. So rounded corners are actually cheaper. So suddenly, instead of having this kind of ultra-rational, machinistic architecture on Mars, arch spaces underground shield against radiation. We will have to create a small city inside. People live and work and grow their food. So it's not really this sort of arid thing. 3 elements combined is really what becomes the starting point.
With total photographic memory, he remembers everything he's ever read. He can tell you every city in the United States, its highways and its area codes and its zip codes and its television stations and its counties and when it was made a state. The history of any country, all the rulers and when they served, presidents of this country, when they were born, their wives, their families, all of NASA's accomplishments, when they went up, when they came down, what they're doing. He can talk to you about the Bible, he can quote scriptures, he can tell you anything about it you want to ask him about.
For a new sort of entirely Martian of what it's going to be like living on Mars.
Go west, and this is the way our country developed, from the East Coast to the West Coast. During that period of time, there was initiated what was known as a Pony Express. I'm sure all of you read something about it in the history of the United States. I may not have the days exactly right or the years, but I'm more or less familiar with the history of the United States. And I love to tell a story
He's
of
artistic.
the Pony Express.
No, he's autistic.
And it was initiated.
I'm not familiar with that. What is the exact nature of the
St.
problem?
Joe's, Missouri.
He lives in a world of his own.
And the purpose
I'm
of
sorry,
it was to
but what's
speed up
wrong
the
with
movement
him?
of mail. It was a problem getting the mail from...
I do know that his brain doesn't work like other people. Intended to be annoying. If he's getting on your nerves, you just take a break. Spend some time away from him. Sure, I'll just send him back. Sorry?
No, it's inside jokes. You're telling me I just have to deal with this stuff. Is that it? I just got to deal with this stuff.
Yeah. Ray. Raymond.
Yeah?
Are you good with numbers?
Yeah.
I read about this. I want to try something here.
Kmart, 400 Oak Street.
What'd I tell you after this, Ray? After this.
Ray, can we try something?
Yeah.
Do you know how much 312 times 123 is?
0.15192304.
How much is 4,343
535,926.
times 1,234?
76.
Ray, do you know how much the square root of 2,130 is?
359,262.
If you had $1 and you spent 50 cents, how much money would you have left?
About 70.
70 cents?
70 cents.
Man, that is amazing. He should work for NASA or something like that.
Ray.
400 Oak Street.
Ray, do you know how much a candy bar costs?
About $100.
$100, huh?
Yeah.
You know how much one of those new compact cars cost?
About $100.
He should work for NASA. Man, that is amazing. He should work for NASA or something like that.
He's pretty well off.
We are working on the foundation of interplanetary civilization. So the technologies that you would want in your Martian settlement.
Most autistics, they can't speak or they can't communicate.
I'm Ariel Ekbla. I am the founder and lead of the MIT Media Lab Space Exploration Initiative.
Ray.
Yeah.
Do you know what autistic is?
Yeah.
You know that word?
Yeah.
Are you autistic?
I don't think so. No. Definitely not.
We have 28 different research groups all across science, engineering, art, and design. You don't necessarily want to live in a space habitat that was designed just by an engineer or just by an artist.
And I love to tell a story
He's
of the Pony
artistic.
Express.
No, he's autistic.
And it was initiated...
I'm not familiar with that. What is the exact nature of the problem?
You need the meeting of the minds.
Ariel's project, the Tesserae, is a self-assembling architecture.
Can we make this something that is on demand, modular, and reconfigurable? You can take these tiles, pack them flat in a rocket. So.
And we just thought, well, it's not real, it's not for me. We were all fucking bums, virtually, you know.
Somewhat Indiana Jones style. Then, once they're in orbit, they're released in this microgravity environment and allowed to float freely, and as the tiles are swirling around, they're drawn together through the force of magnets, and they'll be able to snap together and self-assemble, slowly growing into a much larger structure. In science fiction is that they are the most optimized volume for a given surface area.
You've got to create that whole base of civilization, but without a lot of the handy things we have on Earth.
Build up the base, starting with one ship, then multiple ships, then start building out the city, then making the city bigger.
You don't. I'm Lucianne Walkwich, and I'm an astronomer at the Adler Planetarium in Chicago. There's no way to do some of the operations on other planets. We should not do things to other worlds that might contaminate them and make them unusable. You know, most signatories were probably like, maybe, until we have the ability. Then what? Is a planet's worth only determined by the presence of other planets?
And we just thought, well, it's not real, it's not for me. I mean, fuck, it's all right if you're living in the sunshine San Francisco, but San Francisco was like somebody coming to me and saying, hey, Azzy, do you fancy a trip to Mars? You know.
The space colony is where human beings can conduct fruitful industry.
I mean, fuck.
It's very common when talking about Mars, and especially human futures on Mars, to talk about it as the next frontier.
The final frontier.
As a site of colonizing.
The long-term goal of SpaceX is to develop the technologies necessary to colonize Mars.
These words and ways of describing potential futures are steeped in language of settler colonialism that connects back to the United States' own founding.
A young man, go west, and this is the way our country developed, from the East Coast to the West Coast. During that period of time, there was initiated what was known as a Pony Express. I'm sure all of you read something about it in the history of the United States. I may not have the days exactly right or the years, but I'm more or less familiar with the history of the United States.
For anyone who was living here, folks who were indigenous, those narratives are not neutral. A lot of the narratives that I've heard put forward are based in the lure of wanting a second chance, really a do-over to escape some of our responsibilities. But, you know, just as in space as on Earth, wherever we go, there we are.
Hey, Azzy, do you fancy a trip to Mars? You know.
Going to Mars is not an escape from our problems, it's actually the solution.
Maybe in refugee camps. And so we're now working to build models of this, not just at space scale, but at Earth scale.
In his lifetime, I think he will have to make a choice, like should I maybe like move to Mars or not? Unnecessarily expensive or complicated or irrational on Earth.
That new space home would even have a far-out address.
What's the point? What's the fucking point? $1 million, he doesn't understand the concept of money? That's fucking poetic, don't you think?
Pretending to live on Mars, even for only 2 weeks, is like the worst of camping. But with this group of NASA scientists, we lived in the Mars Desert Research Station. My main takeaway was it was deeply uncomfortable. Deeply uncomfortable. Deeply uncomfortable.